episode one. I thought we kicked this thing off right. We have Brennan Steele, who is the author of Breathe, a guided healing journal for Black men. And this thing is amazing. I've been working through it myself. I highly recommend. I'm gonna stop bragging on the book for just a minute, and I'm gonna allow Brennan Steele to introduce himself. So welcome, Mr. Steele.
Yes, man. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Like you said, name is Brennan Steele. Originally from Nashville. Moved to Memphis about 3 years ago. And even though Nashville, we have our own biases towards Memphis, like I will say that I love Memphis a lot better than Nashville now.
Awesome. We'll take that. There's a competition going on right now between Memphis and Nashville. It's always good to get a win. Right? They got the NFL and the hockey, but we still got NBA and we got Brennan Steele. So took one. And you also went to Duke University.
Yes. I graduated from Duke University, studied history, African American studies. And yeah, that was an experience. I love Duke because it was like a work hard, play hard school. So it was very high academics, a lot of like great academic opportunities, but also we have Duke basketball, which is also great. I went to a few games, and that was kind of like my way to get away from school, but also a lot of other things. Like I think it was a nice balance between like the college experience and like really high academic standards. Also, like have a
I'm gonna have to do a Kanye. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm gonna let you finish. But you said Duke basketball. Yeah, we're in Memphis. This Tiger country. So what's up? What's up with taking the allegiance from Duke and putting that?
Y'all haven't won that yet. Gotta take a little bit at a time. you got the city allegiance. I can't give you the basketball allegiance yet.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. But anyways, well, glad to have you on. Glad to hear more about Breathe. This is amazing work. I'm so excited. When I first heard you talk about it, I was excited. And now to see it completed, this is amazing. Can you tell us more about the motivation behind the book? What inspired you to create this work?
Yeah. I think the motivation and inspiration came a lot of my own story. So I think I tell people that I am firstly recovering from like perfectionism and performance. So that was the way in which I dealt with life. Like as things happened, I didn't deal with them. Instead, I threw myself into leadership positions. I threw myself into grades. I threw myself into all these things that I could put myself first. I went to a magnet high school and I went to Duke, which is top tier school. And both of those are very, very competitive environments. And that was kind of like the name of the game there. I think once I moved to Memphis, I'm a teacher. And so teaching, like, there's so many things that you are to students. There's so many things that you, I guess, experience as a teacher that like I didn't have space to stuff anymore. I didn't have space to perform really, and I couldn't be perfect anymore. And so that kind of like really just exposed so many things in my life that I was trying to avoid. And so I think over time, I just really got into this dark space. And then eventually started going to counseling and started really doing a lot of the work to heal. Yeah, I think in the last couple months, or in this COVID-19, so last, I guess, six months now, I kind of the I guess the idea around mental health and just like this like wholeness and wellness really started sitting with me more. And then you had George Floyd, you had Ahmaud Arbery, you had Breonna Taylor, you had all of those um, continued. I mean, it's happening, but this continued violence against Black people. And so I thought about this idea of like um, one thing that really affected me was as a man and as a Black man, I struggled to figure out how to emote and still feel like I was following the masculinity rules
Mhm.
that's set by society. But then on the other hand, I was dealing with this very real racial trauma that comes from when you see, for me, like George Floyd hit really hard because when you see like the life literally leave someone and that person looks like you. Um, you don't know what, like, it's just like this racial trauma that you're experiencing at the same time as the same society that is causing this trauma is telling you that you're not supposed to emote because you're a man. And then even specifically like the the extra burden of being a Black man. And so yeah, that's those things kind of all came together in order to create um, the inspiration for this book or this journal because I wanted to kind of take my own story, also like this shared experience that Black men are having, and just provide a resource for them to kind of start to do their own work in their lives.
Yeah. And what you're doing with this book is, man, this is such a blessing right now because us as Black men have felt so much. A lot of us have felt so much. There's been a collective burden
Mm,
across the board, age-wise and everything.
yeah,
How we responded to, how we, experienced these emotions related to the George Floyd incident,
yeah,
maybe even Elijah McClain and some of the others that were brought to the forefront this summer. And
yeah,
a lot of times guys don't have a roadmap, right? So we feel it, but we don't know how to process it. We don't know what to do with it. We can't even necessarily identify what we're
right,
feeling.
right.
And so I think what you did with this really put the ball on the tee for some brothers who maybe have been in some confusion or lack of clarity around what they have felt. So can you kind of explain how to use breathe? Because it's a
Yeah,
process to be worked through. So
yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm a teacher, and
uh,
so it's definitely in a. I think about it, like teachers will know like this idea of gradual release, and so it's
mhm.
definitely like it's got a pedagogical bend to it. So it is a 3-phase journey, 45 days. Uh, that first part of the journey is 30 days, and it's um, pretty guided. It's more of a workbook in those first 30 days to kind of get your feet wet in terms of writing, especially for men who haven't done a lot of writing before or struggle to know what to write about.
Yeah.
And so each day gives it's a daily check-in about your emotions. So I feel like if you can pin down what you're feeling,
Mhm.
that's huge. Instead of a lot of men when they're asked how they're feeling about something, like I don't know, or I'm fine, or I'm good. Like, and I think to really push into and lean into this idea of like, no, I'm hurt, I'm
Mhm.
angry, I'm sad, is just a really huge step. From there, you have the space to explain why you feel those feelings based on what's happened in the time since you've written last. Um, and then there's like a specific subject. So the first 30 days is 3 themes. It's one is the story of self, so your own life story. Second is understanding the impact of your identity as a Black man. And then thirdly is emotional intelligence. And so you'll run through prompts in those 3 categories. The second phase is 2 more weeks. And this is when you're starting to actually just write. I do give you suggested questions, but you can also go back and elaborate on anything that you talked about in the first 30 days. But those questions, but it's just kind of getting you more into just writing. And then that last phase is just one day. It's the 45th day, and it's you're writing your life story from the time you were born to where you are now. And essentially, like that is um, that is what the hope is that you're able to do by the end of the journal, by reflecting all the things that we've reflected on. And I
Yeah.
think it's really important if you think about a the moment where we're in, when so many Black men, when they are shot and or killed, and they become hashtags, and then their stories are kind of relegated to the the narratives of the media, and not actually who those men were.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to claim your story does a lot for you personally, but also is like a almost an act of resistance. And so yeah, that's kind of the journal. It's 45 days. You can do it 45 days in a row. You can come back to it. I've had men reach out to me saying that like they missed a couple of days, and I'm like, no, it's good. Like keep going. Like some people might take a year. Some people will be done next month. It's
Mm.
all good.
In here, at the beginning, when you talk about life story, and I like this because it's reclaiming your narrative back
Yeah,
from distorted narrative writing and culture, which we drastically need.
yeah.
And in here, where did it all start for you? Briefly describe your family of origin, where you're from, and where your journey began. Can you
Mhm.
speak to the importance of family of origin, family narrative, and the need to understand where you came from?
Yeah.
Who you came from a lot of times.
Yeah. I think that we undersell the amount of impact that our like upbringing has on us.
Mhm.
I think recently you've seen a lot more of that, with a lot of people talking about attachment styles and things like
Mm.
that. But I think that even in my own counseling journey, I've seen that like even though I think my parents are amazing, I want to be like them. I want to have a marriage and family like them in so many ways. Like they're also imperfect,
Mm.
and some of the things that they brought to the table from their past
Mhm.
ended up transferring to me, or some of the things that they did when they thought that they were just doing the best that they could, like uh, impacted me in different ways. But also it informs the way that I interact in other relationships. It informs the way that I approach the world. Like I think like we are remiss if we say that like we are all just like individual people without any like influence from like our family, even if you didn't have a good family relationship. And so yeah, I think that's so important to start there, because it helps frame a lot of things throughout the rest of your life, and that helped me frame a lot of my wounds and um, my identity, honestly, from if I when I started there.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff, especially when we start digging into family of origin, a lot of it, uh, it needs for you to come at it with a certain level of honesty and openness, because you said it, my parents were great parents, but I have to accept that they weren't perfect parents. It's only, I mean, we're people of faith, so we know there's only one perfect father, right? But so we have to be able to acknowledge that maybe my parents fell short in this way or that way, and that's hard. It's hard to do. That's hard for me to do. I want to herald my parents in the scriptures, say honor your mother and father, and I want to live that out. But I
Yeah,
have to acknowledge that I live in a fallen world, and my family is a part of that. So yeah, thank you
yeah,
for putting that in the book, because we have to be willing to open that door, and that's a hard door to open sometimes for a lot of us.
yeah,
Uh, Speaking of honesty and openness and vulnerability, uh, the brother, and I say the brother because he's a brother in the faith, the brother Kanye West has made this conversation about mental health a little bit more public. I'm not bringing this up to pick on him. I actually like
yeah,
Kanye West. I love the album, and he's probably my favorite rapper. I like him. So,
yeah.
but I hate to watch him suffer like he's suffering publicly right now. So, can you speak to maybe Kanye West and his openness with his mental health struggle
Yeah.
and how that's impacting the culture right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think like say what you will about Kanye West. But like one thing that I consistently think about is like he's open about it. We know his mental health
Yeah.
situation. And like I think that that's a lot more than what can be said for a lot of specifically Black men.
Mm.
So like I think like particularly in the Black community, we have this tendency of like, oh no, she crazy or he's crazy, like,
Yeah.
and
Blanket
we
statement.
right, and it stops there, and it's like also makes this like um I guess it's like this negative connotation around mental health, and um I think that like guess like you can say Kanye West has a lot of things that he needs to figure out, address, or whatever. But like I think that's a starting point that like that this mental health in his life isn't like under wraps. It isn't like a
Mm.
secret. It isn't something that isn't like necessarily like being like denied. Um, and so I think that like I don't know, like I think that it has a potential to impact the culture in a way that more people are going to be talking about mental health. I mean, you see that generally with celebrities and sports players, whatever, talking more and more about their mental health. And like, I feel like that is causing a shift amongst millennials and Gen Z in talking about their mental health. And like even the people that I see that are most excited about Breathe, for instance, are people around my age or yeah, a little younger, a little older. Like it's not, it's easier for them to be like, no, like I need this. And I think like people like Kanye West, um, people like Charlemagne the God, like people like all these like high profile people that are starting to talk about um, mental health are like implicitly and sometimes explicitly kind of pushing that as
Yeah.
pushing the importance of mental health on a broader level.
Yeah. You yeah, I'm glad you I'm glad you mentioned it's broadening and becoming less taboo rather. And man, we have
Mm,
needed that for a long time. And we're
yeah,
still not there yet. We got a long way to go. But
right,
I, I
right.
think I think projects such as this will uh, help open that door
Yeah,
for some people. How would you speak to the brother? Because I'm thankful that Kanye is open and that he's out there with it. He's a shameless brother. Um, always has been, but a lot of
yeah,
brothers aren't like that, right? So he's a oddly free, emotive man. What about the brother who's more stoic or have been told things such as "boys don't cry"? Um,
mm-hmm,
maybe even a man that's a generation up from us, like an
yeah,
X or a boomer who's like, cry. My wife doesn't need to see me cry. My family doesn't need to see me they need to see me be strong. What do you
yeah,
say?
yeah. I remember the first time that I um, got emotional with my counselor, and um, essentially like it was about this idea of feeling weak or feeling like not masculine enough because I was like crying more or because I was dealing with all of my past and my wounds and my emotions. And he was like, Brendan, like strength, like the strength that you have is like way more than any strength that like is like physical or like the avoidance of your emotion. To be able um to be able to like identify, process, deal with your emotions is like a sign of true strength.
Wow.
Um, and so I think that like was really impactful for me. But also like I think that um, like if you like even if you're not showing or dealing with whatever showing your emotions or dealing with whatever is going on in your life, it's you're carrying it in some way.
Yeah.
Um, whether it's like health problems, whether it's like a strained relationship with any of your loved ones, like
Mm,
it's carried some way. And I don't think that you can have holistic healing or holistic health without dealing with your emotions and without dealing with the wounds of your past, without dealing with that, like the inner man.
yeah,
um, and so I think you can like think that you are being strong. You can think that like shutting down, not sharing, keeping it all in is strength, but it's like this like faulty strength that
yeah,
is only going to sustain you for so long. And so I think I would say like um, it's been encouraging because my dad has started going to through the journal, which has been really cool. And I think it's like it's just evidence that it's never too late to like
mhm,
start, and it's never too late to like um, live a fuller life. Because I feel like for um, me doing that has like paid off tenfold, if not more. Like, and me continuing to do that has just made me feel lighter. It's made me be able to deal with things and move on quicker. Like I'm able to be a more whole and healthy person.
yeah. You said holistic, which makes me want to bring up faith.
Yeah.
You are a man of faith. You're a believer.
Yep.
And
Yep.
this is the Welcome to the Fan podcast, and it's talking about living by faith in a very real world. All right. And so, with that being said, after the little shameless plug I just did there, with that being said, uh, faith and mental health are sometimes juxtaposed in such a way that they're enemies, they're rivals. And especially historically in the church, there's been this taboo of counseling, therapy, or even medicine that would say that a person would say, well, I have a pastor, I have a prayer life. God can heal me of anything that I'm going through. Why go pay someone X amount of dollars to sit in a chair when I can just pray and read the Bible? Yeah, how do you deal with that tension between faith and mental health coming from your faith-based Christian worldview?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll say that the first time I tried to go to counseling was in college, and it was hard because I was used to like, oh, just pray, you'll be all right. Or like, you aren't doing something well enough if you're still not figuring this out. Whether you're not praying hard enough, you're not worshiping enough, you're not spending enough time with God. And like, it was just hard to really submit to the process of counseling.
Mhm.
And so I stayed in for like maybe 6 weeks and they didn't go back. And so I think, I mean, honestly, like it took like really getting to rock bottom. Like, no, like let me try this again. But also, I think that two things. One, that like God is um, God orchestrates and has like divinely orchestrated the world in so many different ways,
Mm,
that I think that he allowed for the field of counseling to be created and has put God-fearing people in that role
yeah.
um, for his children. Again, I think that like we are expected to like give and like worship God fully and love him with all of our heart, our mind, our soul, all of it. And you can't do that unless like all of those things are good. Like you can't do that unless like they're all in a healthy space. And I think that like part of that is going to counseling. The other thing I'll say is that I think my counselor is God's megaphone.
Mm,
Like my counselor has a way of saying things to me, and um, saying them in a way that I know that he wouldn't have just known based off of what I've told him. Like God is working through him,
mhm.
um, and but he's also giving me like he gives me the spiritual, but he also gives me the very practical things to go along with it. And so I think that like that idea that like um, counseling and faith have to be separate or that they are continually juxtaposed is like preventing us from fully thriving. and preventing us from being able to worship God with everything that we have in some ways, for sure.
Thank you a ton, man. This has been good. I hope brothers get a hold of this. This is a blessing to the community of faith, because as you said, we need to be healed holistically. And this is our mental and emotional health is a big part of us being healed holistically. And so thank you for putting in the work and doing this and completing this. I know this is going to bless men and men's groups and individuals and people all over the world. So thank you for putting in the work and doing this.
Thank you for having me. For sure.
Absolutely, man. So like I said, we're going to wrap up for today, but thank you. And hopefully we have you on again. As you got other stuff coming down the pipeline as well. So I can't wait to have you back to talk about that. But where can people find this?
Yes, so you can find the book on Amazon. Okay. You can also find it on Barnes & Noble online.
Okay.
And there's some other booksellers that are selling it. You can also go directly to our social media. On Instagram, it's Breathe Brotha, Breathe, Brotha. Okay. I have some content there and like some encouraging content on there, but also how to get the book is on there as well. So any one of those mediums, you can find the book.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you. I'll definitely be putting that link when we post this and share this with everybody. But thank you again for being on the Welcome to the Fam podcast. Everybody out there, we'll hope to see you next time. We'll be doing this often. So be looking out for the next episode. All right. You got